Have you ever felt the weight of being invisible to someone who should be by your side? It's like carrying the burden of a guilt that isn't even yours but insists on chasing you. That's how she lived for years, trying to fit into a marriage where love seemed to be replaced by criticism and indifference. And the worst part? Knowing that the shame comes from someone who once vowed to support her. But this isn't just a story about suffering, it's a story about rebirth. Amid the chaos, she discovered that there's a limit to how much one can endure and that no one deserves to reshape themselves to fit someone else's love. No matter how hard you try to be perfect, if someone doesn't see your worth, it's like trying to hug the wind, exhausting and empty. Today, you'll get to know the details of this journey, from the moment she realized something was wrong to the day she decided to change her life. And who knows, amidst it all, you might also find inspiration to transform your own story. Because, believe me, the power to start over is within you. From a very young age, she noticed that the world around her was marked by favoritism. While her brothers received words of encouragement, she was often silenced with phrases like, "That's not something for a girl." The weight of gender loomed like a shadow over every family decision. In that environment, it was impossible to ignore the barriers, but there was something within her that refused to give in. Have you ever noticed how strength often arises precisely in the moments when we least expect to have a chance? As a child, she developed a unique skill, observing in silence. Every act of inequality and every word of disdain left marks on her heart. I'm reminded of a story I once heard. A young girl, forbidden from playing in the yard, decided to learn about the stars just by gazing through the window. Similarly, she found her own window to the world. Narrow as it was, it still showed her that the horizon was out there. Discrimination at home wasn't her only challenge. At school, the situation wasn't much different. If a boy got an answer wrong, it was seen as distraction. If she got it wrong, it was inability. Despite this, she refused to let others' words define her worth. Think about it. How often do we accept limiting labels? Perhaps it's time to redefine what's possible. The lack of family support also showed in small everyday details. While her brothers had the privilege of new notebooks at the start of each school year, she made do with reused pages. A simple detail, but one that revealed the family's priorities. Even so, she learned to value what she had, a trait that would later become essential in her journey. Have you ever felt that everything in life was conspiring against you, yet there was still something inside whispering, "Keep going"? That's how it was for her. Even in the face of neglect, a flame inside her kept burning. While others mocked her dreams, she began to nurture a deep desire to prove she was capable. That kind of determination, when properly cultivated, can transform lives. There were countless moments when she cried alone, feeling the weight of always being last in line. But even suffering, when faced head-on, can teach great lessons. What she learned from her story is that accepting tears isn't a sign of weakness. On the contrary, it's the beginning of a strength that emerges from within. As someone once said, diamonds are just pieces of coal that endure pressure. And so, childhood passed, leaving deep scars but also preparing her for something greater. She didn't know it at the time, but every moment of discrimination and inequality was, in truth, a push toward a future of accomplishments. After all, when foundations are forged in fire, what comes next has every chance to be unshakable. And with that spirit, she began, even as a young girl, to seek a way to change her destiny. When she reached adolescence, she realized that education was her only chance to change her reality. However, family resistance was constant. "Why study? You'll just end up married and staying at home," they said. Even so, she didn't back down. She borrowed old books, studied by candlelight when the power was cut, and sought in every page a way to see beyond what her reality offered. To keep up with her studies, she had to work from a young age. Between shifts at a factory, she carried small notebooks hidden in her pocket. During breaks, she used every minute to learn something new. This is a perfect example of how we can make the most of our time, whether to learn a new skill, study, or simply plan our next steps. Prejudice wasn't limited to her home, it extended to her workplace as well. Many coworkers mocked her determination. "You think you'll be a doctor, huh?" they laughed, while she carried heavy boxes. But those laughs became fuel for her persistence. This reminds me of an important lesson. When people underestimate you, use it as strength to surprise them. It was during this time that she discovered the power of small acts of courage. She decided to save part of her meager earnings to pay for a qualification course. Even as she heard comments like, "You're wasting your money," she knew that investing in herself was the key to breaking free from that cycle of suffering. Isn't that something we all need to learn? Sometimes, the greatest victory is betting on ourselves, even when no one else does. There were days when physical exhaustion almost made her give up. After working all day and enduring crowded transportation, she still had to face long hours of study. But she saw no other option. She either fought or accepted defeat. Have you ever thought about how small sacrifices today can open enormous doors tomorrow? It's something to ponder. On an especially difficult night, she remembered a phrase her teacher once said, "Education is the one thing no one can take away from you." Those words became etched in her mind like a mantra. That night, through tears and exhaustion, she promised herself she wouldn't let anything or anyone stop her dreams. It was a decisive moment, the kind that shapes an entire trajectory. And so, through sacrifices and triumphs, she began to see the fruits of her efforts. A scholarship here, an unexpected compliment from a teacher there. Doors began to open, albeit slowly. But she knew she was just at the beginning of a journey that would demand even more courage and resilience. After all, what awaited her in the future was something she couldn't even imagine yet. After years of struggle, she found in marriage the promise of stability, but the reality turned out to be quite different. Within the first few months, disagreements began to emerge. The husband, who seemed to be a source of support, became yet another source of criticism. Have you ever been in a situation where what seemed like a victory turned into a constant challenge? That's exactly how she felt. As if the tensions with her husband weren't enough, her mother-in-law became an unrelenting presence in her life. It was as if every choice she made was scrutinized, every mistake amplified. Once, while attempting to cook something simple, she was met with a sharp remark. "In my day, a woman who couldn't manage the house had no value." Words like these cut deep, don't they? Yet, she kept trying. This exhausting dynamic quickly began to wear down her self-esteem. She started to question herself, could the problem be me? It's remarkable how toxic environments can make us doubt even our greatest qualities. But remember this, people who tear others down are often projecting their own insecurities. It took her a while to understand this, but it made all the difference when she finally did. The fights became frequent, and the humiliations almost daily. One of the hardest moments was when she heard, in a cruel tone, that she would never be good enough. Words like that echoed in her mind for days. In such moments, what keeps us going? For her, it was the certainty that she needed to do something different, even if she didn't yet know what that would be. Interestingly, it was the small gestures of kindness that kept her hope alive. A neighbor complimented her strength. A friend encouraged her to see her own worth. Sometimes, all we need is someone who sees us when we've forgotten to see ourselves. And it makes me wonder, who around us might be in need of a word of encouragement today? Despite everything, she tried to save the marriage. She attempted to communicate, sought advice, and did everything she could to create a harmonious environment. But when a relationship is one-sided, the effort becomes an exhausting cycle. Have you ever felt like you were carrying all the weight on your own? She lived with that feeling daily, until she realized it was impossible to save something when the other person wasn't willing. In the midst of this turmoil, she began to entertain the possibility of change. It wasn't a clear idea yet, just a spark, a timid thought. What if freedom was a choice? It's fascinating how the most challenging moments can plant the seeds for transformations we can't fully see yet. And she was on the brink of discovering that. When she became a mother, something inside her shifted. Despite the tumultuous environment, her daughter became the light in the darkness. Every smile, every small milestone the child achieved was like a dose of energy that kept her moving forward. It's remarkable how, in the face of adversity, the simplest bonds can become our greatest reason to fight. And she knew she would do anything for that little life. Raising a child in such a hostile environment wasn't easy. There were days when she barely had money to buy diapers, But she always found a way. She sold cakes, sewed clothes, did whatever was necessary. You know the saying, fighting a lion a day? For her, it felt like battling an entire savanna. Yet, she stood firm, always prioritizing her child's well-being. Beyond financial struggles, there was constant judgment. Her mother-in-law, once again, never missed an opportunity to point out her shortcomings, especially in raising her daughter. "This child will grow up without discipline," she'd say, oblivious to the monumental efforts she was making to show love and care. But while the criticism came from outside, the genuine bond between mother and daughter grew strong, like the deep roots of a tree. Her resilience began to inspire others. A close friend, seeing her dedication, remarked, "You're an incredible mom, even with everything you're going through." Those words were like a balm, affirming what she already knew deep down but sometimes forgot. Isn't it amazing how a few kind words can restore our courage? Perhaps it's time we say something like that to someone we admire. There was one night in particular that stayed etched in her memory. Without money to pay the electricity bill, the house was dark, and her daughter asked for a story. With creativity, she made up a tale about a princess who fought dragons to protect her castle. In that moment, she realized that despite everything, she was building something precious, memories filled with love. And isn't that what life is all about? Amid all the challenges, she never let her daughter feel the weight of the situation. For the little girl, life was full of stories, games, and moments of affection. This ability to create a positive environment, even in difficult circumstances, is a skill we should all strive to cultivate. Think about it. How can we turn our struggles into opportunities to strengthen our bonds with those we love? It was by watching her daughter grow that she found new strength. Every step the little girl took felt like a shared victory. She began to ask herself, "What kind of example am I setting?" This question marked the beginning of a deeper reflection, a preparation for what was to come. After all, a mother's love isn't just about sacrifice, it's also about transformation. There came a moment when she realized the weight she was carrying was no longer sustainable. The marriage, once a promise of stability, had become an emotional prison. But the decision to divorce was not easy. It was preceded by sleepless nights, constant doubts, and that paralyzing fear of the unknown. It's remarkable how, sometimes, the hardest choice is the very one that sets us free. The decision was met with criticism from all sides. Her family insisted that a woman must sustain her marriage to the end, while acquaintances whispered about how she had failed. But instead of giving in to the external voices, she chose to listen to her own. It makes me wonder, how many times do we avoid making important decisions because we fear what others will say? Freedom came with its own challenges. Without her husband's financial support, she had to start over from scratch. Yet, rather than seeing it as a defeat, she embraced it as an opportunity to build something new. She rented a small house, started working at a local market, and enrolled in evening classes. Her courage to rebuild reminds us that no matter where we are, there's always room to take a step forward. Interestingly, she found peace in simplicity. There were no more shouting matches or constant judgments. Her home became a refuge, even if it was humble. One day, as she sipped her coffee, she realized something extraordinary. The silence that once seemed terrifying had become a comforting embrace. Have you ever felt the relief of leaving behind something that was weighing you down? Despite the difficulties, she noticed how her daughter began to thrive in this new environment. Without the constant tension of the marriage, the little girl seemed freer, happier. That was the greatest sign that she had made the right choice. It's funny how we can endure so much more when we see that our sacrifices are creating something better for those we love. The decision to divorce also unearthed a strength she didn't even know she had. Every obstacle, from paying bills to facing judgments, became a stepping stone in her journey. She began to value her own capabilities, something she had long forgotten. It makes me wonder, what strength lies dormant in you, waiting for a change to emerge? And so, what seemed like the end of everything became the beginning of a new life. Slowly, she started to dream again, to consider possibilities that once seemed out of reach. But most importantly, for the first time in years, she felt in control of her own destiny. And while she didn't yet know exactly what the future held, she was ready to embrace it. After the video, she spent a long time simply rebuilding her own life. She wasn't in a rush to find someone else because she knew she needed to rediscover herself first. It was during this journey of self-discovery that the unexpected happened. A new relationship began to blossom. It wasn't planned, but it seemed to be exactly what she needed to rediscover the meaning of love and partnership. He wasn't just someone who admired her, he was someone who respected her. Unlike anything she had experienced before, this relationship was built on mutual understanding. Remember the old saying, love is about building, not destroying? This time, she felt what it was like to have someone by her side who was willing to build with her, brick by brick. In the beginning, the fear of repeating past mistakes made her hesitant. Isn't that natural? After so many wounds, opening your heart again can feel daunting. But he was patient. Through small gestures, asking about her day or supporting her ideas, he showed her he was there, ready to walk beside her at her pace. This is what healthy love does. It creates a space where real security can grow. He also connected not just with her but with her daughter. This was a constant worry in her mind. How would he treat her little one? To her surprise, he became a true friend, respecting both their space and time. This made all the difference, as it showed that he understood loving her meant embracing the whole package. Starting over brought its own challenges, of course. Adjusting to sharing her life with someone again wasn't easy. However, she learned that the best relationships are those where differences are seen as opportunities to grow together. Isn't it true? True partnerships don't eliminate conflicts. They teach you how to overcome them. Over time, she began to realize that a relationship is about more than love. It's a partnership that strengthens your independence. He encouraged her to pursue her dreams and explore new horizons. This taught her that true love doesn't hold you back. It sets you free. Don't we sometimes forget this, thinking love is just about sacrifice? She was learning that to love is also to expand. And so, the new relationship not only brought happiness but showed her that starting over is possible. Each day with him was a reaffirmation that life can surprise us if we have the courage to open the door to the unexpected. What she didn't know yet was that this phase was only the beginning of something much greater, her true transformation. After years of struggle, hardship, and quiet victories, she began to reap the fruits of her resilience. Looking back, it was impossible not to feel moved by all she had overcome. The girl who had been doubted by her family, the woman who endured a troubled marriage, and the mother who single-handedly protected her child had now become an example of strength and determination. Her story, once defined by pain, was now brimming with triumphs. What stood out most was her ability to turn scars into lessons. Each difficult moment, every tear shed, became a step toward a fuller life. It's fascinating to think, how often do we let hardships define us when they could be shaping us? In her case, it was overcoming challenges that taught her that, even in the worst situations, there's always something to learn. Over time, she realized she was no longer just a survivor, she was an inspiration. People around her began seeking her advice and perspective. And she, with her calm smile, would say something simple yet powerful. Asterisk, if I could do it, so can you. Asterisk words like these, spoken with truth, have the power to change lives. Happiness also came to her in ways she had never imagined. Her relationship with her now teenage daughter was filled with closeness and trust. Together, they reminisced about tough times but also laughed at their small victories. That bond, nurtured with so much effort, became the ultimate proof that her sacrifices had been worth it. Isn't that how it works? The relationships we cultivate are our true legacy. In her professional life, her achievements were just as remarkable as her personal ones. Thanks to the courses she took and the opportunities she created for herself, she began to thrive. Today, she runs her own business and, more importantly, helps other women who face similar struggles. It's a cycle of transformation that only grows stronger, a force that not only builds but multiplies. And love? It remained present, but now in a light and secure way. The partner she had found became more than a companion. He became someone who celebrated her victories as if they were his own. It was a relationship that didn't dim her light but amplified it. Together, they were proof that love doesn't demand perfection, only a willingness to grow side by side. Now, she looks at her journey with gratitude. Not for the suffering itself, but for the lessons it brought. Every challenge she faced had shaped the woman she had become. Confident, accomplished, and happy. And the best part? Her story was still being written. After all, when we allow ourselves to overcome, we discover that life is full of unexpected chapters, and she was just beginning the next one. So, can we now see the transformative power a single decision can have? The story you've just followed isn't just about overcoming challenges, it's about granting yourself the right to live with dignity, love, and respect. Now, I ask you, what's holding you back from making the decisions in your life? What are you ready to let go of today? Remember, no matter where you are right now, there's always a chance to start over. Small steps today can lead to big achievements tomorrow. So, how about starting right now? Think of one action you can take today to change your trajectory, something simple yet meaningful. Then, share it with us in the comments. What will your next step be? And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, we're always sharing inspiring stories and practical tips to help you live the life you deserve. See you in the next video.